rise, please, and honor our bride when she enters. Who gives this bride away?
Her mother and I do.
Beautiful. Go meet your bride and you'll bring her the rest of the way.
Oh, I don't know. When do we do the circles?
You can do them right now.
If you want to.
Without a little difficulty, which is a good metaphor for me. This is 3. I'm keeping count. Don't worry.
Whoa.
Excellent.
That's what I thought. Did I step on?
Okay, come on up, come close. I promise I won't bite.
Okay.
You may all be seated. Thank you. So we welcome all of you, and the ceremony that you just witnessed is a very ancient one in our culture, that of the bride making circles around her husband. So, in an ancient ceremony in Judaism, this was always done like in a big open field, and so you didn't have the problems of space and everything. And when all this stuff was put down in the Talmud, they clearly didn't have, weddings in Las Vegas chapels in mind when they did that. But our couple worked it out. That's a good metaphor for marriage. Lots of explanations for why a bride makes circles. The one I like the most is the notion of by doing that, she's kind of creating a vortex, a little bit of centrifugal force, and bringing the light of creation into their home so that their home will be filled with God's light for all the years that they are together. The other explanation I like is that she's also, by making circles, kind of marking her territory. And kind of telling the world that he's off the market now, he is mine, and nobody else is to enter into that.
Let's know you.
So we welcome all of you. In the book of Ecclesiastes, there is a passage that says that there is a time to rend and a time to mend. There is a time to tear and there is a time to sew up. There is a time to be sad and there is a time to be happy. Now, in our tradition, when we are sad, we tear our garments, which shows that someone we love has been torn away from us. But that passage in Ecclesiastes reminds us that there is a time, again, to sew those garments up, a time to be happy again. But the Hebrew is a bit more specific. It isn't really just to sew up the garment. It's, in fact, to really make something new, a new garment. And if kiryat, if the tearing is the ultimate act of sadness in our tradition, then this, a wedding, is the ultimate act of happiness. And so really the modern rabbis interpret that passage to mean not just to make new garments, but in fact to make wedding garments. Because this is such a happy occasion that it is really a sacred occasion. We don't even call this a wedding in Hebrew. We say this is kiddushin. This is making holy and sacred your coming together. And the reasons that the rabbis tell us that this is a sacred occasion is what the two of you are really doing here tonight is chasing away sin. Because the very first words that the Torah ever mentions about a wedding is actually a pronouncement of that sin. For the Midrash, which are stories that the rabbis use to explain things that aren't terribly well explained in the Bible, the Midrash says that at the end of the 6th night in the Garden of Eden, as the sun is going down, as the first Shabbat is about to begin, God notices that Adam is crying. And God asks Adam why, and Adam replies, well, Lord, I performed the task that you gave me. I matched the animals with their mates, I gave them their names, and I looked around and I didn't find a mate for myself. And God realized that he had forgotten to make a mate for Adam. So God pronounced that sin by saying that it is not good for the man to be alone. So I will make him a helper corresponding to him. God cast a deep sleep on the man, and the man slept. And God took flesh from his side and filled that in its place, and with that flesh he fashioned the woman. And then God brought the woman to the man, and the man said, "This time she is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She is to be called Isha, she is to be called woman, for from Ish, from man was she taken. And therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and cling to his wife." And that's the operative word, young man. Cling to his wife. And together they shall become of one flesh. Brachim chabayim b'shem Adonai. Blessed are you who have come here in the name of God. Beruch nuchem mi beit Adonai. We bless you from this house of God. And ivdu et Adonai b'simcha b'yu lefanai v'rananai. And serve Adonai with joy. Come into God's presence with song. For we rejoice that Aaron and Patty join in marriage in the presence of God and all here who love you. Mi'adir al hakol mi baruch al hakol mi gadol al hakol hu yivarech hechatan v'chakala. And the most awesome, glorious, and blessed God grant your blessings to this bride and groom. For surrounded by those who love you, whose joy and prayers are with you here, you stand at this chuppah, symbol of the home that you will make together. May your home always be a shelter against the storms that life will surely bring you, but also be a haven of peace and a stronghold of faith and of love. For in your coming together, God's most important work of creation goes on. God joining man and woman, God planting the divine likeness within each of you. Man and woman are created in the divine image, male and female did God create. And may your coming together animate the divine in each of you, and may each help the other to grow in God's likeness. So as this is a sacred occasion, we sanctify with a sip of, normally it is wine, but we can use juice, we can use anything but water. The reason we do this is to remind us of the gifts that God gives to us. He's provided the grapes. All we would have to do is sit and let the juice ferment, and it magically turns into wine, just as we believe the two of you are gifts to each other. God is the one who has given you to each other. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. And we praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who has provided us fruit from the vine. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'hitulenu v'natzuim v'hanzuot lani dechuppah v'kiddushin. Baruch atah Adonai mikadesh sham el Yisrael al yedei chuppah v'kiddushin. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot and consecrates your marriage. We praise you, Adonai, our God, who sanctifies our people Israel through kiddushin, the sacred rite of marriage at the chuppah. Amen. And you both take a nice sip. I now ask you both in the presence of God and all here who love you, do you, Aaron, take Patty to be your wife, to love, to honor, and cherish throughout life? If so, answer yes.
Yes.
Perfect. And do you, Patty, take Aaron to be your husband, to love, to honor, and cherish throughout life? If so, answer yes.
Yes.
Beautiful. Whew, over the hardest part. You've made this public declaration. You have signed a ketubah already, promising to be as one for your entire lives together. All that is left to do now is to exchange something of value. In the ancient world, this was usually done with coins. Modernly, we use rings. It really could have been anything that the two of you would decide is of value. Because the point of exchanging the rings that you will in a moment is to kind of declare to the world that marriage has value. You can actually put a number on it. And as you start with a number today, your job is to kind of grow the value of that marriage over the course of time. So we'll do everything like hope that whatever rings you use today, they get a little bit bigger as the years go along. Maybe you'll throw a couple of stones on them. Perhaps your houses will get bigger, cars will get bigger, God willing, your family will get bigger. And the reason for all of this is we want you to be like God. It says at the end of the creation story that he rested on the seventh day. The rabbis in the Talmud kind of argue, what do you mean he rested? He's infinite, he's all-powerful, he doesn't get tired. So we probably decided that's probably not what the translation was really meant to say. What it was probably meant to say was that God, in effect, kind of finished his creation and kind of turned around and looked and said to himself, ooh, look what I did. I made a world. and I put man in the garden. I gave the world value. So we want you to do like that. At the end of your lives, God willing, many, many years into the future, you'll kind of turn around and say to each other, ooh, look what we did. We made a world. And we added to the value of the universe by all the people that we ever touched and were a part of all of our lives together. We also use rings to symbolize the fact that because they are round, they have no beginning, they have no ending. It shows that we believe that marriage really has no beginning and no ending. And we very much believe what the Kabbalah teaches us, that you two were matched at the moment that God created the universe. For whatever reason, he simply decided to wait to this particular day, at this particular moment in time and in space, to bring you two together. And to know that from this night forward, no one else can ever occupy the space that the two of you will occupy now together as one. That's why the Torah is very specific in that word, cling. You are to be so close that nothing can ever come between the two of you. And so we say that you are the shert. You are each other's intended for all eternity. And so, Aaron, I'm going to ask you now to place that ring on the finger of the one that you love. And as you place this ring on Patty's finger, I'll ask you to repeat after me, first in Hebrew. Hare,
Hare,
at,
At,
mikudeshet,
Mikudeshet,
li,
Li,
betaba'at,
Betaba'ach,
zo,
Zo,
kidat,
Kidat,
Moshe,
Moshe,
the Yisrael.
the Yisrael.
Perfect. In English, by this ring,
By this ring,
you are consecrated to me
you are consecrated to me
as my wife,
as my wife,
in keeping
in keeping
with the laws of Moses
with the laws of
and
Moses
the people of Israel.
and the people of Israel.
Patty, the same now. I'm going to ask you to place a ring on the finger of the one that you love. And as you place this ring on Aaron's finger, I'll ask you to repeat after me, first in Hebrew. Ani,
Ani,
lidodi,
Lidodi,
vidodi,
Vidodi,
li.
Li.
Perfect. In English, I am my beloved's,
I am my beloved,
and my beloved is mine.
and my beloved is mine.
Amen.
Amen.
Perfect. Okay. Now, take a deep breath and relax for a moment. We've come to a part of our service where we're going to blend, as we blend families, we're going to blend traditions for a moment and honor a Christian tradition of our couple lighting a unity candle, the candle that's in the center. You notice that the tapers on the side have been lit already, signifying that as they come into this chapel, they come in essentially as separate individuals. By the lighting in a moment of the candle in the center, it will now signify that they will now become, in effect, one. So I'll ask you in a moment to light those candles, and when you place the candles back, do not blow them out. This is this is the convergence of tradition. Half the people I know say, "Now blow the candles out." The others say, "Leave them open." I say, "Leave them on," and I'll explain why in a moment. So I'll ask you now to pick up your candles and light. There we go. So why do I say leave the candles lit? And I'll ask you to make an observation. Notice, and this is perfect, notice that the candles are kind of burning at the same height. And God willing, if they go this way for the balance of the service, they will burn very evenly right down to the very end. Neither is taller than the other. Neither is greater than the other. So as you came into here as separate people, you leave here as essentially a married couple as one. But the only way that you'll be able to kind of stay as one and stay a married couple is if you continue to grow as separate people. God willing, you're going to be together a few years. Can you imagine if you all stopped growing and just kind of were just like you were today? You guys would be very bored with each other after about 2 or 3 years. So you need to continue to grow. You need to continue to do individual things that you can then come back at the end of every day and tell each other about that. I had this very old rabbi's manual in my office. It's over 100 years old, so I don't use it anymore. It's in pretty bad shape, the book. But there's a line in the service that I always imagine. I like to look at every now and then. I like to think of couples back about the year 1913. who got married and were listening to this rabbi read this prayer, because there's one line in there that's exquisite. It says that he hoped that they always may be startled by the wonder of their love. So I ask you to kind of keep that in mind, to continue to be startled by the wonder of your love. And the only way that you can do that is, as I say, to kind of remain individuals a little bit and spend a little time every night just kind of talking to each other about the great things you did for that day. You will then practice what we call in Judaism humility, to be humble. It doesn't mean that you each try to see who can bow lower than the other. It just means that you're quite willing to accept the fact that you can learn something from each other. Moses was called the greatest, the most humble of all people, simply because no matter how great he got, he never managed to forget that he was no greater than the weakest link in all of Israel. And that is in effect why I ask you to keep these lit, to kind of remind you that as you see here throughout the whole service, they will burn at essentially the same rate, neither being greater than the other. So this is also a part where the couple usually wants the great sage advice of the rabbi. And I always tell couples, I don't come with any sage advice, partly because the Talmud tells the rabbi at this point, don't talk for very long. Nobody's really interested in what the rabbi has to say at this moment. I get that. I'm okay with that. I also don't come with any advice, because who am I to give advice? You've been getting lots of advice throughout all the time that you've been together. If you're like most couples, you politely said thank you. It's gone in this year, it's gone out the other, because you're going to make up the rules for your marriage as you go along, and that's the fun in being married. It's on-the-job training. But tonight I kind of break that a little bit, because in discussing, some kind of reference for a reading, something to really give advice, we decided that there was a very wise gentleman about 2,000 years ago that probably wrote the greatest piece of advice on marriage, even if he wasn't writing it for the purpose of marriage. It's just the best expression of love. And, we always say, hopefully all that marriage comes down to in the end is that, can you love each other? And if you can love each other, you can overcome anything. So we're going to hear a beautiful reading from Paul's letter to the Corinthians, one that's familiar to all, about an expression of love.
Thank you. In John's first letter to the Corinthians, in chapter 13, verses 4 through 8, he writes as follows. Love is patient. Love is kind and is not jealous. Love does not brag and is not arrogant, does not act unbecomingly. It does not seek its own, is not provoked, does not take into account a wrong suffered, does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices in the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails.
Wise man, that Paul. So I'm going to just add, again, not really advice, but a quick little story. And take everything that's been said to this point and just kind of add this, and this will be kind of your guidepost as you leave today. So I'm looking at a couple standing with me, back is to the door. In about 15 minutes, when we're done, the door will open and you guys will walk out of here into a completely uncertain world. Just like a couple about 5,773 years ago did the same. There was Adam and Eve standing with their backs to the gates of Garden of Eden. God is about to send them out into the world. He gives them their instructions for life. And then he gives what I call a spiritual instruction. And he says to Adam, above all else, you will need to be remembered. And he says to Eve, above all else, you will need to be appreciated. Now, in one hand, that's the same instruction, because you can only be remembered when there is somebody in your life to remember you. You can only be appreciated when there is somebody in your life to appreciate you. But those are vastly different. A man is remembered because we don't make anything. In fact, we're not even made of anything. We're made of the dirt of the ground. We are the Adam. We are the earth creature. Take a hose and wash us away, and there's nothing left of us. So men are judged by how their children are viewed in the world, and how everybody that they ever dealt with is viewed in the world. And if they are viewed well, then they will say, you must have had a great teacher. And that's how men are remembered long after we're gone, long after everybody that ever knew us is gone from this world. Somebody remembers us if we do our jobs correctly. So your vision, Aaron, is to kind of always be looking out 200-300 years out into the future. That's, you're taking this family and you're going in that direction, and there you go. Now, women, on the other hand, are appreciated because they make everything. A house is nothing but filled with things that women make. Every little tchotchke, every little piece of thing on the wall, they just are. So they're constantly being thanked. The greatest expression that we have in our tradition for women comes from the book of Proverbs, a woman of valor, in which the woman is just in constant motion for 21 verses. So because women are thanked for everything, their place in the world is right now. So your job is to kind of always pay attention to what's going on here. You're going to take the family that way 300 years in the future, but you're going to be forever tugging on and say, slow down, we got to pay attention to what's here today. You can all never know where you're going until you know where you have come from. And you can't ever get anywhere until you know that you are here and are moving forward. What am I trying to tell you? You are complements to each other. Each has a missing piece that the other is filling. So I'm going to ask you to make me a promise. And when you introduce each other from now on to somebody new, you'll say, this is my complement. This is the person that makes me whole. And that will remind yourselves why you're standing here today. Now, despite the great advice from St. Paul, despite the beautiful tradition, despite all the wisdom that I just gave you, I can't promise you, unfortunately, a perfect marriage, because they never exist. But do everything that's been said here right now, and I can promise you a very long marriage. Because your model, Adam and Eve, really did that. They did everything that we just said. They loved, they remembered, they appreciated. The Torah says they knew and they understood each other. They were married for 900 years. So do all these things. 900 years from today, call me, I'll renew your vows. And we can all say, Amen. Okay. All right, so now we get to celebrate a little. We do so first in our tradition by the chanting of 7 very old and pretty blessings, which we just call Sheva Brachot, which means 7 blessings. 7 is our number of perfection. There are 7 days of the week that equal the 7 days of creation. Our holiest month, the month of Tishrei, is the 7th month. The holiest day, Shabbat HaKadosh, is the 7th day. And the Torah says that Jacob and Rachel celebrated their marriage to each other for 7 days. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehakol bara lichvodo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer hodam. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yaratzar b'dam b'tzel b'tzam demut b'tavnito. V'hitkin lo memenu ben yad ad yad. Baruch atah Adonai yotzer hodam. So stasipa tegel siyam b'keput spanach halatocha besimcha. Baruch atah Adonai metzemech siyam b'vanecha. Samea tisamarim hauvim. Kitzabehacha yitzircha b'ganiden mikedem. Baruch atah Adonai metzemech hatan v'chala. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bara sason v'simcha, chatan v'chala, gila rina ditzcha v'chedva, ahava v'yahava v'shalom v'reus. Meher Adonai Eloheinu, yitzma b'yari chadav v'tzachot Yerushalayim, kol sason v'kol simcha, kol hatan v'kol kala, kol metzalut hatani mihupatam, urimimishte neginatam. Baruch atah Adonai metzemech hatanimcha kala. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, the creator of fruit of the vine. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, creator of all things for your glory. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, the creator of man and woman. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who creates us to share with you in life's everlasting renewal. We praise you, Adonai, our God, who causes Zion to rejoice in her children's happy return. We praise you, Adonai, our God, who causes bride and groom to rejoice. And may these loving companions rejoice as of your creatures since the days of creation. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, the creator of joy and of gladness, bride and groom, love and kinship, peace and friendship. O God, may there always be heard in the cities of Israel and in the streets of Jerusalem the sounds of joy and of happiness, the voice of the groom and the voice of the bride, the shouts of young people celebrating and the songs of children at play. We praise you, our God, who causes the bride and groom to rejoice together. Amen. And again, you take a nice sip.
Oh, yeah, you will do that. Thank you.
And as you've shared wine now from the single cup, so may you, under God's guidance, share contentment, peace, and fulfillment from the cup of life. May you find life's joys heightened, its bitterness sweetened, and each of its moments hallowed by true companionship and love. In the presence, then, of all here who love you and in keeping with our traditions, who have spoken words and performed the rites that now unite your lives together forever. Aaron and Patty, you are now Ish and Isha. You are man and woman in the sight of God and the entire world community. So now, I don't say husband and wife. I say man and woman for one last little teaching. In Hebrew, those two words, Ish and Isha, man and woman, share two common letters, the letters Aleph and Shin. And each has an extra letter. Ish, the extra Hebrew letter Yud, Isha, the extra Hebrew letter Hey. When you put the letters Yud and Hey together, that's the divine way that God's name is spelled. So as the two of you are together, then God is a part of your life and a part of all the lives of everyone that you'll ever touch in God's light, all the years that you are together. When you're not together, you're left with those common letters Aleph and Shin that spells the Hebrew word Aish, the word for fire, and just know that fire will consume everything that it comes in contact with. Yivarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, may God bless you and keep you. Ye'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha, may God's countenance shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yisad Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom, may God always turn his face towards you and bring you peace. Amen. And everything comes to an end when we break a couple of things here. So, first of all, we have to honor the fact that this couple has made a big promise to each other by just agreeing to even come together to get married. And we take promises very seriously in Judaism. We say that sometimes worse than anything else that happens in the course of a marriage is a broken promise. Because once a promise is broken, then trust is difficult to find again, and that may be the basis of our marriage. So I'm going to ask our moms to come forward for a moment and try to figure out